and I'm going to go ahead and record so that we can share this with folks who have not joined or are not able to join. But the mentors and the Sankofa leadership team thought it would be helpful to get together and share experiences about what it has been like with your mentor this year, any needs that you've identified, any tips you want to share with one another. Hi, Dr. Nia, good to see your face. So, Dr. Horton, do you know Dr. Nia and Miss Benita?
Well, I know Dr. Nia because I was her mentee the last time and she was in Sankofa. So I know a little bit.
You know her just a little bit. Okay. All right. And we have folks joining so far. So far, this is kind of cool. We actually have 3 members now of our inaugural cohort who are on as mentors. So that is excellent. It is an excellent way to live out the Sankofa model, which is all about community. And once you finish whatever phase you're in, committing to participating and sharing in another way. So thank you for being here. So I would like to go ahead and do introductions because I don't know everyone, and I'm assuming everybody doesn't know me. So my name is Yakisiwe Mitchell. I am a board member. I am first vice president of the board of the Black Administrators and Child Welfare. I'm also on the Sankofa Leadership Institute executive team, and that is the capacity that I will be in today. I have been involved with BACW since the mid-90s, and we were able to, through the vision and hard work of Dr. Sharon McDaniel, enact and legitimize and make official the BACW leadership training model that has been going on for decades. She actually made it official in 2022, and we're excited. We're now on our second cohort, and it's just a wonderful opportunity to develop, to push, to train up the next generation of leaders who will continue to fight this fight, because unfortunately, we still have way too much disparity and disproportionality in the child welfare system. It's overrepresentation of children and families and underrepresentation of administrators and decision makers. And so it's up to us to continue to push and to continue this this struggle. And a part of what we're here to do today is equip and encourage each other in the struggle. So what I would like to do in terms of introductions is I'd like for you all just to briefly say who you are, where you're from, if there's anything else you'd like to share about your career, that would be great. And then when you're done introducing yourself, if you could identify the next person to introduce themselves. So I'm going to throw it to Mr. Demetrius Starling. How are you, sir? You're on mute.
Sorry, I have some
Right,
technical difficulties here.
Okay, there you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Demetrius Starling. I am the Children's Services Administration Director for the state of Michigan. So, in short, what that encompasses is 83 counties, about 3,300 employees, that spans across the child welfare continuum from prevention, preservation, CPS, foster care, licensing, adoption, guardianship, and juvenile justice programs. The only thing that I don't have on my portfolio for the most part is the mental health piece or portion of our department that's bifurcated to another director. So just glad to be here and glad to be a part of the discussion. I will say this first and foremost, that I have not unfortunately had the time to dedicate as much as I want to from a mentorship perspective, but as things have evolved over the past several months and me being able to build my capacity from a leadership perspective and to bring on more folks under my umbrella, my time will be a little bit more readily available than it has been previously. So just excited to be able to be more, ingrained in what's going on with my mentee.
Thank you. Who are you going to throw the ball to?
I will throw it over to my good friend Benita.
Hi, everyone. I'm Benita Miller. Dimitri, I'm from Detroit, that's why. But I'm stuck on the East Coast. So I am Benita Miller. I'm the executive director of Powerful Families, Powerful Communities. I'm an executive on loan to DCF in New Jersey. And my work right now is reimagining the child welfare system through some co-creation activities with community. So I am actually winding down my work here in that we're finalizing some of our initial work. We started with IDEO and now we're working with Shy by Design, which is a design firm out of Chicago. And so I'm excited about the deliverables that we will have manifested by the time the commissioner's term is over here in New Jersey. Previously, I worked in New York City running the child foster care services in the Administration for Children's Services. I'm a lawyer by training. I'm a children's lawyer. So I come to the work in that way. And I'll pass it to Dr. Nee. Was I supposed to talk about how often no, I'm not supposed to talk about how often I talk to my mentee yet, right? No? No, right?
No, not
Okay,
yet.
so I'm gonna pass it.
We're gonna talk about that on the next agenda item.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna pass it to Dr. Nia.
Thank you.
Nita. Happy Tuesday, everyone. I am Nia Canty. For those that may not know, I'm a managing director with the Technical Assistance Unit with Casey Family Programs. And I guess I'll share right now, I'm in the throes of developing leadership curriculum. One in particular where we're revamping our Leadership Academy. I think Demetrius has attended that before. And so being really intentional about providing leaders with those pivotal next steps in their first 12 months and what does that look like. And so that also contributes to why I'm in DC this week. I'm hoping to connect with Rafael Lopez and talk about some of those components, and then also some other leaders in the months to come. And so we're revamping what that looks like moving forward with a focus on practical content, judicial engagement, legislator engagement, budget and data, and just really to revise how we go about preparing leaders, particularly those that may not have a backdrop in child welfare. What does that look like? And the other part I'll add is also developing characteristics when hiring a child welfare leader for them to be successful. What are the characteristics a hiring body would need to look for when considering that? So I'm super excited about those efforts. And I think a lot of what we learned in Sankofa last year will also be woven into this, because they're just common themes and threads when you think about leadership that, if it's done well, would be at the forefront. And I'm passing it to somebody. And so I'll pass it to Dr. Horton.
Thank you, Dr. Nia. Hi, everybody. My name is Sherry Simmons Horton, and I'm currently an assistant professor at the University of New Hampshire in the social work department. I was previously worked in pretty much all parts of the child welfare system in the state of Texas, including the agency and in the private sector as well. The research that I do is qualitative research primarily that focuses on lived experiences of Black children families who've been involved in these systems as a way to understand systemic and structural racism. My target population is crossover youth, so youth who've been involved in both child welfare and juvenile justice systems. So I look to try to highlight that structural racism, as well as talk about, these kids' experiences in more positive ways, since the literature typically looks at them as a pathology. So that's kind of my thing. And this is my second time being a mentor. As maybe some of you have heard, Dr. Nia was my mentee before, although that relationship seemed more like a peer relationship because we learned from each other. And I am the second vice president of BACW and have been with the organization, for about 3 years now. And for the Sankofa training, I typically teach the program evaluation section of that curriculum. So great to be here, and I will pass it on over to the great Dr. Alan Michael Graves.
Oh, look at you. Hey, everybody. I'm Alan Michael Graves. I am a board member of BACW. Been with the organization just about 10, 11 years. In my day-to-day job, I'm just really intentional about engaging systems on how they engage Black people. Whether that be fathers, whether that be families, and more than just pointing out the inequities, I train professionals on how to engage those populations. This is my second time being a mentor. Enjoy it tremendously and look forward to the conversation. I came on late because I'm going training to the next, and I didn't know who went already. So it looks like I'll throw it back to you, Yakiswe.
Thank you. So I see, thank you, Dr. Graves. Thank you, Dr. Graves. I appreciate you, Dr. Graves. Actually, I had my doctoral defense last week, and Dr. Graves came to Southern California from Vegas and represented. So I just want to give him a little shout out. So I see on my screen Lisa's autopilot, but I haven't heard anything from this individual. So I'm curious. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nia. I don't know.
I think sometimes those autopilots are actual recordings, and the person is able to record, but maybe not actively engaged.
So yes, thank you for saying that. That's what I was thinking, and then I became suspicious. So I'm trying to figure out how to remove the person, but I think it is Lisa Chambers' transcription bot. So great. She may be joining us. I know everybody's got a lot to do. So here we are. One of the things that I'd like for us to talk about, this is your opportunity to share about your experience. And the question that I have for you is, what have you learned so far on your 2023 Sankofa mentorship journey? So one value of mentorship, and Dr. Sherry alluded to this, is that it is a benefit to the mentor and the mentee in terms of you may call it a peer relationship. I mentored, I'm not mentoring this year, but I mentored Dominique Robinson last year. And that was such a mutually beneficial relationship. So I'd love to hear from everyone. What have you learned? What have you gained from being a mentor thus far on your 2023 mentorship journey?
So I can start. I learn something every year. I will say that similarly, as others have said, I have had some personal challenges, family challenges that have kept me from being able to be as active. But my mentee and I we've been able to make contact a few times since she's been in the course. And one of the things that I think is a value, kind of going alongside of what was said before, is that the mutual benefit of it, the things that you learn from the professionals that are part of this leadership training, and on, you know, just on a bigger scale, just being able to being a part of building a collective, you know, in the state that we're, I guess, the climate that we're in terms of having so much resistance with how we deal with DEI and anti-oppressive strategies and that sort of thing. I think it's important to know where your allies are that are out there in the field, you know, doing the work, so that even if legislation is not really helpful to support our kids, that we have, you know, that we have this way that we're kind of building out this long range collective. So everybody in this room and in their respective roles, the people that are in the training and their respective roles, continue to, you know, sprinkle out, if you will, through the waves, to get the word out of what needs to be done. So the anti-oppressive works get done as a result of that. So I think that, you know, the collectiveness and the collaboration opportunities for, you know, whatever happens, you know, knowing people at Casey, knowing people in Michigan, wherever it may be, can be really an opportunity to collaborate and network. So yeah, I said a lot, but that's why I stopped.
Thank you, Dr. Sherry. And I'm glad to hear you say that, because that is what we hoped we would hear from mentors, right? In terms of being able to build that network, but also that support base for this very difficult work.
Yeah, I'll just hop on, you guys, because I apologize. I am trying to get to one training to the other, but wanted to chime in a lot of what Dr. Horton just said. And last year I had a male mentee. This year I have a female mentee. And what I've learned this year is that there's a difference, right? And we know, and that difference is important for both of us, right? Because we see things and have conversations through different lenses. And I have been, I think, instrumental in helping her see things through a male Black lens, while I've gotten some input for my own self-development through her lens, right? So that would be my biggest takeaway thus far.
Thank you, Dr. Graves. I appreciate you, you know, calling that out. Yeah, we are different. But our experience is different. And I think, you know, one of the aspects of cultural humility is that even when you are a part of race, ethnic group, or culture of an individual, there's still so much more you have to learn, right? And so I love the posture of lifelong learner that you have taken and that you encourage, right? I would imagine that you and your mentee have some good push and some good dialogue. So excellent. Thank you for that. Who's next?
I can jump in here. I don't know. I don't even remember who's left. So my mentee and I have had a few encounters, and I think the biggest takeaway for me is consistency and just the value of those check-ins. And so similar to what's already been said about just navigating life and everything else that happens, but the importance of making sure we avail ourselves to them. And for me, that was the biggest thing, because navigating this new role, I had to put some things in perspective and compartmentalize over the last few months. And so not losing sight of that was the biggest takeaway for me.
Thank you.
I'm
you.
sorry. I've enjoyed getting to know my mentee and being consistent, because my mentor that I had was very consistent. So I felt like I needed to make sure I was as available as she needed me to be available. I think the only challenge I've had is that her content, now she's in a operational role. She works in technology. So some of our conversations aren't necessarily grounded in the content, but more around like how do you negotiate your workplace. So that's been a different experience for me. So it's not necessarily a challenge, but just I guess a distinction in what I had expected.
Yeah, it's a learning opportunity, right? It's not male to female, but it certainly is practice, your practice and operations orientation to a tech
Right.
orientation. And really, I think one of the opportunities there is to have that shared learning and perspective. So it's wonderful to have someone who has that focus in Sankofa, because most of our cohort members are practice and operations, right? And so there's that opportunity again for mutual learning. So Mr. Starling, you are
So, yeah, so in full transparency, the contact between me and my mentee has not been as consistent or fruitful as I would have liked it to have been. And it's extremely, from my perspective, I think it's disheartening probably on his part because of him being a Black male, of course, and being new to his particular role. There are some opportunities for us going forward though, because Dr. Sanders has built out a larger group of Black males for wellness. So looking to use that as a platform for me and Devin to have more dialogue. So I can kind of be there more from a supportive standpoint and be more intentional with my connections and kind of gaining some knowledge and support from our larger steering group and committee. I'm sorry, I'm right here by my window and kids are outside playing. So I can use that information to funnel down to our one-on-one so it can be of more value and intentional when I touch base with them. But as we all know in this work, sometimes other priorities can kind of get in the way. Not trying to make an excuse, but these last couple of months have been quite challenging from my perspective. And I think that it's kind of unfortunately filtered off to him where he doesn't have as much connection with me as he would probably like, but I'm going to definitely be more intentional going forward.
Thank you for your transparency. You're right that these kinds of challenges come up. We have had this being our second cohort, we have had the opportunity to experience challenges with mentors and mentees meeting, and we've seen it from both sides, right? Sometimes the mentor is not as available for various reasons, and sometimes it is the mentee who is not. I talked to a mentor yesterday who said that she has not yet been able to connect with her mentee. She, I think, had put some dates and times out there and didn't get a response or got a slow response. And as busy as things are, we keep it pushing. We keep right. We keep it going. But as you said, Ms. Benita, you had a mentor who was very consistent. And so that was one of your key takeaways. And so then when you showed up as a mentor, that is what you committed to do. And so I think you're right, Mr. Starling, that intentionality, protecting the time, compartmentalizing the time. But I also am aware that the higher you go up in an organization, the more responsibility you have, the harder it is to keep that protected time. And so if there is anything that we as an executive team can do to support you in your efforts to keep that connection, we are certainly here for that. But I'm excited to hear that you have connected with Mr. Gilchrist in Dr. Sanders' group. So that is another opportunity, right? I think I'll be excited to see how you guys are able to connect going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for that sharing. What I wanted you all to be able to do was hear different aspects of how you are experiencing mentorship with this cohort. So I'm going to move us along. I not sure if you all have seen or remember the mission of the Sankofa Institute, but it is to ensure that we have a pipeline, excuse me, of equipped future leaders who are prepared to abolish racist practices and lead with reimagined visions of more inclusive and diverse anti-racist child welfare practices. So we have a critical mission that all of you have spoken to. That's what we're committed to, and that is what we are working to develop. So just wanted to show you this graphic. Good night. My computer does funny stuff when I'm sharing my screen. I want to show you this graphic. This is so important because we emphasize here these three important aspects of the Sankofa model, that we have the instructor, the faculty. So Dr. Sherry talked about her role as a faculty member. Dr. Graves also does some work as faculty for Sankofa. So faculty members provide content, context, right? Education. Mentors offer consult, and then sponsors, who we're going to meet with later this afternoon, facilitate opportunity. And so it is intended to be a complementary circle relationship that we have, that the mentee, experiences between the instructor, mentor, and sponsor. So just want to give you guys just a little information about who we have this year. We have 13 cohort members. 2 of them are male, and we've got 5 people who are executive leaders, 3 mid-career, 2 emerging, 2 who would characterize themselves as executive/mid, and 1 who would characterize themselves as mid/emerging. The breakdown of agencies is almost half and half this year, which I think is a good mix. And then the regions, you'll see that the East Coast is the region that is best represented. We've got Philly, New Jersey. We've also got Midwest, South, and we've got 1 California person and then 2 folks from Arizona. In terms of educational level, we have 2 who are pursuing doctoral studies, 1 who's pursuing a bachelor's degree, and the remainder hold master's degrees. So this is just a little information that we've gotten from them. The information on the right-hand side is really interesting. It's always interesting to me, right? To learn where people see themselves applying what they're learning. So you'll see that it's a pretty even split between those top 2, strategic planning and in their professional leadership growth, but then day-to-day work, and then in their working relationships. And then finally, the great news, and this is consistent with what we heard last year, that the courses, the sessions meet the cohort members' expectations based on what they had read in the description. So we've gotten over 90% of the feedback that we've gotten has been positive, very positive, which lets us know that we're doing things the right way. We also are able to capture the information that people provide on the narrative when they have opportunities to put in narrative comments. So we're able to pass that along to facilitators, discuss it as an executive team, and figure out how we make improvements in real time. So important dates, just want you to put on your calendar. It probably is not, the in-person session is probably not as important for you as it is for the sponsors. We wanted people to know and understand, hey, coming up, folks need to be out of the office. They're going to be traveling, but we do want you to put on your calendar the capstone presentations and graduation, which will take place December 14th and 15th at Johnson C. Smith University. Okay. Any questions and answers? This is your time to ask any burning questions that you've been thinking about, or what feedback do you guys have about the mentor experience?
I have a question, and this is probably like gonna sound a little trifling, but this is who I am. I mean, it's not who I am.
Not trifling.
Well, I'm just saying trifling in the sense that I don't want it to sound like babysitting, but that's may have. But anyway, I'm wondering if it's possible to have maybe like specific times within the curriculum flow that there may be something that can be like this in the curriculum to say mentor-mentee check-in. You know what I'm saying? That I could, and I'm just speaking for myself because you know, I did have challenges this year, but I don't want to neglect, you know, I want to, I guess if I'm saying that if it makes sense to have something that is in the curriculum saying check in here, and then that way I can say, okay, well, I'm going to check in at this time and put it on my calendar. You know what I'm saying? And yes, being the mentor mentee can do our own free flow and stuff as well. But at least just to make sure that that is kind of given both of us some accountability to say, okay, we're going to check in at this point, whether by email, Zoom, whatever it may be. And if that way, if it's somewhere sitting inside the curriculum and say, hey, check in with your mentee or mentor or whatever, you know what I'm saying? That's why I said it may sound trifling, because, you know, I see the Dr. Alan Michael Graves has come off to his on his camera.
He came off mute. He came off mute. That's because you're keeping it 100, and he likes to keep it 100. So, but
he's about to start coming for me. So I'll let it out. Go ahead, doctor.
No, it was actually to complement what you're saying, and what my question wasn't going to be, was going to be a comment that I think it might be helpful for us if after sessions, the facilitators might be able to throw the mentors some information on conversations to follow up with your mentees, right? So as a facilitator of this particular session, this is what we talked about. These are some things that came up. Here might be some things that you would discuss with your mentee, right? That to me would be impactful, because I got to tell you, when me and my mentee meet, sometimes we not struggle, but we brainstorm on things to talk about.
Right.
And if it was going to be directly connected to what either they learned and or they want to give their perspective in an individual setting, I think that would be most helpful. So in line with what you're saying, Dr. Horton, maybe it's in the curriculum that there is a post-mentee mentor check-in after each session.
Okay. So you mean schedule that, because the sessions happen usually the last week of the month, and so how would that look? Tell me.
So so in my mind, it's not even a scheduling. I just facilitated this session. I put together some notes and or thoughts around my session that just goes out to the mentee and to the mentors. I'm sorry. And so whenever you guys meet, here's some information that might be helpful in your dialogue whenever you meet, right? So I'm not saying specific times or dates,
right?
Because my mentee and I have already established a schedule, and so I don't want to add anything to it. But during there, we come to the table with even some agenda items around conversation.
I like
And
that.
maybe even as like when I did the program eval course, you know, as an because I think that there's parts that involve the capstone, right? But like at the end of the session, it could be, you know, your takeaway assignment is to, you know, share with your mentee or make time with that person or whatever, to maybe even talk about how do you take what you learned today into, you know, where you are, how helpful is this, how, you know, to kind of just for me, anything that really for the mentee and the mentor to kind of just give me the shock treatment and say, okay, make sure you do this, because if I get, for me, a situation where, okay, hey, we'll just catch up when we need each other, we might not catch up because they're doing
Right.
stuff, you know. Me and Nia intentionally found time to get together, and my current mentee, I check on her, she checks on me, but then again, everybody, I think everybody in the class and Dr. McDaniels, everybody knew that I had a loss in the family, so there was other stuff going on. But in any normal situation, it's still being honest on my side, be a struggle for me to say, okay, let me make sure that I do this for a situation where maybe a mentee says, just, you know, we can get together, you know, I'll let you know if I need something, but I don't want to leave somebody hanging, you know.
Right.
And I want it to be as enriching experience for them and for us to stay connected. So that's what I meant when I meant to say trifling, because I know it may look like I just need somebody to kind of remind me of something. I kind of do, but I want to stay there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's helpful.
That makes sense.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Maybe others think I'm crazy. So
No, you're not. And you, no more self-deprecating comments. No more. Stop it. Yes, Dr. Nia.
I'm trifling may not be as self-deprecating, might just be like, you know what? This trifling, no. The other thing I would add is I think while we have assigned mentors, and maybe this was proximity because we worked in the same space, someone reached out and wanted my feedback and thoughts about the capstone and just conversation, which I'm sure they may have had with their mentor also. But I wonder, what does it look like for future participants to know and or have access to across the board, to allow them to be able to tap in, maybe based on interest, maybe
Yeah.
based on, you know, separate from their individual, but like if Bonita's saying, hey, my person is into tech, but then there may be somebody that is a techie on board, that they can access that techie also, so that they're marrying too. So not to give this person a new assignment, but
Yeah.
just to know who else is available and at their disposal as they're building their own network of relationships.
I really like that idea. I think that what you've mentioned sometimes happens organically, but in the virtual space, that is more challenging. And so I think it would be good to develop some sort of space where people could indicate whether they were open to being contacted by members of the cohort, right? Whether or not they had a mentee in that particular year, right? So maybe it's the Sankofa network that people have access to and are able to reach out regarding specific subject matter. Does that sound consistent with what you were talking about? Yeah, I wonder, and what you did mention, you know, that it's not to take away from the mentor assignments that were made, because the executive team does make the assignments based on. We also consider the career level of the individual, as well as anything that we think they specifically might need and when we're pairing and matching. And so I know that last cohort, there were at least 2 people who didn't engage, 2 cohort members who did not engage with their mentors. And we weren't really sure why. And so I wonder, since we assign mentors, what would it look like if we opened it up, right? And said, these are other folks that you are welcome to network with. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, realistically, I have to be honest, like my time constraints, in terms of being able to give more, I don't know what that looks like in terms of allocation of time.
Right.
Because like even now, sometimes, scheduling or being consistent and reaching out, or trying to provide additive support on the back end, in response to conversations can be not consuming, but it's something that requires a bit of focus. So I don't know if added layer of, not unless it's like a speed dating conversation, about 30 minutes.
I
That's
like
all I
that
got.
idea. I really
Yeah.
like that concept though.
Yeah.
I like the speed dating idea, speed mentoring.
Yeah.
Dr. Nia, I got the sense that you meant folks reached out to you for something specific, not necessarily for ongoing mentorship.
Right. No, then that's why I put in the chat like a one-off. So even when Bonita says like speed dating, it would just be if Bonita and Demetrius both rep Detroit, but maybe if they didn't and they were in a different capacity, what would it look like for her to inquire with him about some of the networks that's happening in Detroit? That's very specific, very this, very that. So anything just to be able to know who is who as it relates to how that may benefit. But she would need to know that he has that access. It wouldn't just be like he's coming up and saying, hey, I'm from Detroit. If you guys need anything, let me know. It's more so he just happens to be child welfare director in Detroit. And so Bonita would have the wherewithal and we wouldn't be creating any barriers for her to know, hey, I can reach out to Dee to ask these 1 or 2 questions, and they have that interaction. It's not for it to be ongoing, nor is it a requirement, but I think people should be encouraged to communicate with whomever, and maybe we encourage it in the context of you have a mentor that's ongoing, but you have access to 20 people if you needed to know something else, blah blah blah. So more so the village concept, not for it to be that we are availing ourselves for every call, etc. But if somebody reaches out, I mean, I can have a one-off call. It probably is easier just to have this one-off call with me, mentee, anybody, just this one call, and hope for the best.
Yeah, I really like that concept. And even if you're able to ingrain like that Scrum mentality, I know that's been pretty beneficial for us. We have these 15-minute bursts of connection where you have very detailed, not trying to push people off, not trying to, imply that you don't have time or can't make time for certain folks, but you want to make sure your time is intentional. So I really like the approach that Dr. Nia and Bonita are talking about as far as expanding that, that village mentality. But if and when those touch points occur, just have the Scrum mentality. Like we got 15 minutes of really in-depth discussion we're going to have. We can touch on certain things, how I can make a connection for you. And again, just make that time intentional. So, because I know we're all extremely busy and up against it on a day-to-day basis. So make sure that time spent is very intentional.
Yeah, I really like that idea, that out of the box thinking. I like the idea of those 15-minute bursts of connection, and make sure that we're being intentional with the time. And one thing we certainly could do is provide some ideas for mentors on how to structure, mentors and mentees on how to structure that time so that you make the best use of it, especially in those times when you don't necessarily have, for my mentee and I, we didn't struggle with agenda items. I did though have sort of an agenda framework, and then we would fill in as needed. And so, maybe those are some of the resources that we can offer so that however your time is structured, you just have some other ideas on tools that you can use and ways that you can do it. I like that idea. All right. Other thoughts or questions? Well, you guys may just have 8 minutes of found time. I appreciate you all for logging in. I know that you're all busy. Also want to express our appreciation for the commitment that you make to the Sankofa Institute and to your mentees. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.